Ever since the fashionably late update, I found myself struggling to win as a civilian even though I'm a sweaty no-life with over a week on the game. And it's not just me. There are plenty of videos on the internet discussing the same issue with the game, and how balancing decisions have caused the killers to become way too strong. Despite this, I feel that it is totally possible for civilians to win, and I do believe the game is in a much better place than it was before the update. So in this video, I'm going to discuss exactly why it's so hard to win as civilian, and how we can still do it even after the update. I hope you enjoy. I've got a question for you. Have you actually ever heard the entire Sightbreaker Last Man Standing theme in a real game? I would bet many of you haven't, and that's because of how powerful the killers have become in this update. But before I get into that, it's important to understand something first. How looping has changed in this game. You see, before the update, looping was undeniably the optimal strategy to win a civilian. It made surviving the killers simple, and usually was a death sentence for killers like Killjoy and Harkin who could never compete. The Die Death community always despised this strategy, and months before the update, Saucify and DZ, or the developers of the game, rolled out map changes to weaken looping, but it was still nearly unstoppable. It became clear that the only way this could really be fixed is if killers themselves received ability changes that were specifically designed to counteract looping. Because of this development, many of the killers have insanely strong, nearly uncounterable abilities that almost always will work perfectly with little skill involved. These abilities I like to call guaranteed value. A perfect example of this is Harkin's new and improved Agitation. Before the update, this ability was kind of a joke. It was a quick-moving, wall-piercing beam that dealt only 15 damage to a single target. Not even 20. Now, however, Agitation hits many targets, has a larger hitbox, and leaves behind these huge particles that damage and slow anyone who walks near, and it lasts multiple seconds on the ground. What makes this ability absolutely ridiculous is that you don't even have to hit the civilians with it for it to be extremely good. The wall that it creates alone will force civilians into horrible little scenarios, making the ability practically guaranteed value. Because civilians are forced to face nearly uncounterable abilities like these, and in the process are losing their ability to effectively loop the killer, surviving under traditional means is infinitely harder than it used to be, forcing civilians to rely on their abilities or juking, which usually both do not ever last long. This brings me to my next point. How are we really supposed to win if our traditional means to do so have been mostly eliminated? Well, the devs consider this and made it a focal point of the update. Relying on your teammates. I can't find the specific message in the Discord server. Maybe it came around before the server got hacked, maybe it didn't. But months ago, Saucify announced how he planned for many civilian abilities to take on a more team-oriented role in the update. This means that the new intended way for you to survive in the game is to put your faith in random people to protect you, because many of the game's civilian abilities have been weakened and made only viable for team support. I hate to say it, but this gameplay direction is not the best. Although your teammates may be fantastic and have your back a lot of the time, the majority of the time this really just isn't the case. You may be wondering, well, why don't I just try to survive alone like I did before the update? Well, you certainly can, but it is much, much harder. Not only because killers have guaranteed value abilities, but because your own abilities are now mostly underpowered. Take Dash. Before the update, this ability was practically 15 free stamina in your pocket, which was insane for surviving chases, especially against chase-oriented killers like Harkin and Pursuer, who just could not deal with this ability. Now, its best use is just for shoving the killer back. And if you think that'll be enough to save you when you're getting chased, you're in for a rude awakening. Most new abilities in the update are like this too. They are all nice for protecting your teammates, but pretty terrible for protecting yourself. Ultimately, being forced to pick abilities from a weak pool and having to rely so much on teammates is not great when you are one of the only good players on your team. So, what are we supposed to actually do about this? What if the killer is great at the game and our teammates aren't? Are we just screwed? Well, I'm here to tell you no. We have to play better and smarter, but it's still winnable. First off, picking the right abilities is mandatory. Now, if you know that your teammates are good at the game, feel free to pick all the support abilities you want, like Bugle, Caretaker, and Dash too. But if you have just a bit of doubt, that kit's gotta change. My personal strategy is pick one self-support ability and one team support ability. What this means is that your first ability you should mostly reserve for just protecting yourself. This ability is going to be something like Punch, Cloak, Block, Taunt. You can help your teammates with these abilities, but they should be online when the killer is on you, and they're best for protecting yourself. The next ability you pick should be for helping your team, and situationally yourself. This would be an ability like Revolver, Banana, High, or Dash. This ability lineup will grant you tons of flexibility. Say the killer focuses your teammates and not you, and you just get to chill. You have your support ability you can use to help while only putting yourself in minimal amounts of danger. Like you could use Revolver from a distance and stun the killer, or you could place a banana preemptively so your teammate can loop around it. Then you can also use your self-support ability like Punch to help your teammates if necessary as well. But however, if you get focused, your self-support ability like Punch will save your ass when you get pinned. Your team support could help, but is more of a last resort. But seriously, I'd always recommend from one no-life to another to pick this kit. It'll be useful no matter the situation. I would also like to honorarily mention Block once again, as this ability seriously has become an easy S tier ability after this update. Most guaranteed value killer abilities like Pursuer's Stalk, Badware's Bolt, are just easily countered by it now, giving it extremely high value against competitive killers. Not to mention the fact that it's still great for helping your teammates now that it's gotten hit priority. So please pick it. And finally, I would also like to bring up map-specific abilities. Like, when it comes to strategizing in this game, you should consider this. If the map is like Baseplate or Tundra Trench, then I would consider picking Dash, as there are lots of ledges on those maps to push the killer off of. Alternatively, if the map is something like Teapot Paradise, I may pick Flashlight because it reaches well over the gaps on that map. See, we must consider these small things like these now, because the killers are so much stronger. Now, I would like to clearly state that I do believe that the game is in a good position right now. However, it's not perfectly balanced. But if I had to recommend changes to the game, I would say tone down the guaranteed value killer abilities. Although I do agree that these abilities should exist in the game for countering looping, but they are just a bit overtuned right now. A change I might make to Harken's agitation, for example, is I would make it so in her calm state, when she uses the ability, there are small gaps that you can move through to avoid getting trapped by her light particle wall that she creates. But in her rage state, it should remain the same, her light piercer ability. It's supposed to be really good in that situation. But in her calm state, she isn't intended to be as offensive as she is in her anger state. So it would make more sense anyway if there was a way out. For Pursuer, his stalk should give a more clear indicator for how close he is to you. Pursuer means love to stay in stalk and watch the civilians waste all their stamina, so they can start a close chase with full stamina and easily kill the civilian. I'd also recommend making the maps a little larger to give civilians more room to juke the killers, because right now there's not a lot of space, but that's already been mentioned plenty of times, especially in the Discord server. Well, if you made it this far, then thank you for listening to my analysis on this update. When I say definitely isn't always fact. So if you have any questions or points you want to hit me up with, please drop them in the comment section, and I'll try my best to get back to you on them. Anyways, thanks again for watching.